Hello, everybody, and welcome to Woman Up. I'm Leah, and I'm joined, as usual, by Sue. Hello, Sue.
Hi, Leah. How are you today?
Yeah, very well. Can't complain. And we're really delighted to be joined today by Kirralie Smith. Hi, Kirralie.
Hi, Kirralie.
Hi, ladies. Lovely to meet you and speak with you.
Yeah.
Really appreciate you being here. Thank you. So I'll just do an introduction. Kirralie Smith is a staunch advocate for the protection of children, upholding parental rights and defending the truth. She established binary.org, a platform dedicated to dispelling the deception surrounding gender identity theory and challenging the dominant affirmation model, which is currently used to treat people with gender dysphoria. She presents accurate information and insights on the dangers of puberty blockers, cross-sex hormones, and the unnecessary surgical mutilation of healthy bodies. Kirralie provides a platform for the victims of gender ideology and detransitioners and exposes the highly lucrative and predatory trans industry and its implications. For speaking out about the absurdity and unfairness of males in female sports, Kirralie has had 2 AVOs, that's apprehended violence orders, filed against her, one of which has been overturned, and rightly so. She currently has 2 vilification complaints against her. So, Kirralie, you're an absolute force in this pushback against this gender madness. So can we go back in time a bit, and can you tell us and the people watching how you first got involved and how you first started doing the work you're doing and what made you realise that you needed to do something?
Well, look, I describe myself as a very accidental activist. I didn't intend on doing this at all, but it was a platform basically that I had that I felt I needed to be responsible with. And that all came about more than 10 years ago now, when I discovered there was a lot of fraudulent activity in the halal certification system in Australia. That's a whole other big story. But through that, I did gain quite a following and I guess a social media and media presence. I was a little bit active in political parties, which, you know, I soon learned that the political system in Australia is also very broken and that I didn't want to be inside that system, but rather lobbying from the outside. And through the same-sex marriage campaign, I advocated very much for civil rights and laws for same-sex couples. But I did feel that if we redefine the word marriage, we would also end up redefining other words, which has happened, such as woman and child. Child has been redefined as a mature minor. And as a result of that, of the warnings, I had videos that, you know, were viewed by 2 million people. I was approached by some organizations and said, look, there's going to be a big fallout. The activism is going to increase. There's going to be this real push to target our children and to, you know, and women in particular. And I said yes, not realizing how quickly and how severely and how fiercely this fight would become. And so, yeah, we started Binary. We had about 30,000 subscribers to begin with. We now have over 100,000 email subscribers, growing every day. Because this, as you know, it doesn't matter whether you come from the left or the right of politics. It doesn't matter what your religious or no religious beliefs are. It doesn't matter what your ethnicity is. It doesn't matter what your socioeconomic status is. This is an ideology that is impacting women and girls in particular. But there's a lot of good men who are really affected by this as well and wanting to stand up in this space. So this is a real common sense debate. It's united people right across the board, which I think is a fantastic thing. And, you know, I'll stand with anyone. I don't care what your persuasion in anything else is. If you believe that in, you know, sex-based rights for women and girls in particular, parental rights, and most importantly, child safeguarding, then I will stand with you. I will support you. I will work my butt off to make sure that we don't lose the freedoms and the rights and the protections that we do have in this country, but are being very quickly eroded.
Isn't it interesting? Like you say, I don't care who I stand with either, you know, and I don't think it's a political issue.
It's not.
But then the left keeps saying that because Most of the people, like most of the women are from the left, but the right politically see it for what it is. And
Yeah,
because
look,
they agree with us, they say, well, you agree on this issue, so therefore you agree with every single, and it's just a way of
nonsense.
dividing us, and it's not going to work.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No, it's not going to work. And it's, you know, as we have these conversations and as broadly as we possibly can, I think that many women are coming around. Yes, there's some hardcore left-wing radfem, you know, people that just will never, ever stand shoulder to shoulder with someone like me. But that's on them, not on me, because I'm very happy to stand with anyone. But having said that, I also do have a lot of conversations, and, you know, we've just been touring around Parliament houses in New South Wales, Victoria, and the federal parliament. We intend to go right around the country, and there are left-wing, lesbian, feminist women in those groups, and we're very happy to stand together because we all see it for what it is, and it's just not worth bickering about a whole lot of other issues when our most fundamental issue is being attacked.
You know what I found very interesting is going back to the same-sex plebiscite, and when I started getting involved in this issue, and I would see lesbians and gays online saying that they knew if same-sex marriage was put into law like it was, this would happen. And that blew me away. You know, and even now I see lesbians and gays going, oh, I wish I'd never voted yes if I knew this was going to happen.
Yeah, definitely. There's been, you know, even through the campaigns, I had a lot of support from same-sex couples. Again, you know, knowing that I will stand with them and fight to the death that they would have every legal and civil right to exist and to make their own choices as adults for how they want to interact with one another. But I just could see, as could they, that this would harm the children and it would open the floodgates to changing the meaning of other words. And even today, you know, not only do we have the support of a lot of same-sex couples, because same-sex attracted people rely on biology, let's face it, whereas transgender ideology denies it. But we also have a lot of transsexuals that stand with us, because there's a lot in, especially the, you know, over 50s, the 60s and 70s age group in particular, of men who are identify as cross-dressers or transsexual. They will not call themselves transgender, and they are so alarmed at this aggressive targeting of children, and they are working really hard with us to make sure that that they stop.
Yeah, like you say, Sue, we now know lesbians who are saying they wish they hadn't voted. I didn't see this coming at all. I don't. Well, I mean, fair play to you for actually seeing that, because
well, I think most people, and it's a great trait, is we just act in good faith. You know, most Aussies, you know, or people who live in this country are here because we, you know, for so many years gave everyone a fair go. You know, we were really accepting and open and tolerant. But over the years, we've seen this aggressive activism happen, and it's really hard to be slapped in the face, to have your rights taken out from underneath you, and then to try and regain your footing and go, what is going on here? So yes, some of us saw it because I think that things are connected in a lot of ways, and my eyes have been really opened, as I said, being in the political system, but also in the halal certification system. And let me just say, I have nothing against Muslim people observing their rituals and their faith and eating what they think is lawful for them to eat. What I have a problem is when that's imposed onto the rest of Australia in terms of having to pay for that and being deceived in some of that. And so, as I said, that's a whole other story, but I think it opens your eyes into, wow, there's stuff going on in this world, and we really need to, you know, pull back the covers a bit and have a look at it, because there are implications, very serious implications.
And I think that is something that government needs to recognise now, is that the public won't just accept blindly things. It needs to be explained now to people about what it actually means, because I certainly don't trust the government at all.
And we saw that with the recent Voice vote, didn't we? You know, that more than 60% of Australians voted no, and you know, people just don't trust what the government is saying to us. They don't give us information. They don't explain what their agenda is, and so rightly so, Australians are very wary about that. And you know, and then when we see people like Moira Deeming, Alex Antic, Pauline Hanson, others putting up motions in Parliament to protect our children and to protect women, and it's getting, you know, howled down, voted down, and people branded as transphobic or bigots for doing so. I think more and more people are waking up and going, hang on a minute, what is going on?
I actually thought too.
Sorry, go on.
Sorry, Leah, you go.
I was just going to say, do you think with these, I feel like these MPs are being paid off or something like that is going on behind the scenes, because there's no way the Minister for Women can be okay with calling a man a woman and letting men into women's faces. There's just no way.
Yeah, look, I mean, we can speculate. I think that there's several things. Nothing would surprise me, Leah. Let's put it that way. Nothing anymore surprises me. But I think more than anything, you know, the bureaucracy in Australia is so powerful. It's all the faceless men and women behind the politicians. You know, that whatever the commissioner is for, you know, whether it's the internet or whatever it is, they're very powerful people, and they're captured. I think there are purse strings attached. I think that the politicians only see the numbers and hear the loud voices. And so it really is time that Australians start taking it seriously to contact their MPs, write the emails, make the phone calls, and go and see them, because they don't like being confronted, and they don't like it when there's hundreds of calls to their office in a week about the same issue. It makes them nervous. They want their jobs. And we see the campaigning that we do at Binary and that other organisations do, when we fully concentrate our forces into, you know, one electorate or on one issue, politicians get very nervous and they do change their tune. And we've been able to hold back the waters on some things, not all things. But the more people that are aware, the more people that act, the more results we'll get, for sure.
And we really do need that within this issue, because it's just going to get worse. You know, and Australians are very, you know, oh, it'll be okay. That sort of, well, it's not going to be okay.
No.
And at the moment, the fear is keeping people down.
Yeah.
Where there's, you know, people like us, which are very vocal, and we don't care if we're seen.
Yeah, that's right. But look, you know, I think a very typical story, one of my friends, you know, I took her along to the Let Women Speak event when Posey Parker came earlier this year. And, you know, she's a really hardworking small business owner. Her and her husband own a small business. Her children work in the business, her adult children. You know, they spend 6 days a week in that business, and then they just want to have a day off to clean the house, do whatever. They're not really across the issues, what's going on in the world. They're contributing enormously to the prosperity of Australia, but they don't understand the political thing. So when I took her along to the Let Women Speak event, she was horrified at the stories, of course, that she heard, and, you know, was activated then to go, this is insane. But, you know, I think that story is repeated hundreds of thousands of times around Australia, and that's why it's so important, you know, what you ladies do with this podcast, what we all do on social media. We must keep sharing with our networks and growing the audience, because I find that once people understand the issue or are aware of the issue, then they want to act. But the reality is most people just don't know, or they have a laugh. They go, oh, Leah Thomas, how ridiculous, you know, this big fella, but they don't understand what actually is going on.
Yeah. Well, talking of Leah Thomas, you are very vocal about your objections to men in female sports. And you've had 2 AVOs, as I just mentioned, against you. Can you give us a little bit more about that absurdity?
That is absurd. You know what? I've actually had 3 applications for AVOs made against me. One was made by an employee of Football Australia who was very upset that I was criticising their transgender policy, but she withdrew that personal application before it went to court. The second one was delivered to me by the police. 2 police arrived at my home, which was very confronting, to issue me with the summons to court. So it took 6 months of legal preparations, mentions, you know, directions, hearings, all that sort of stuff in and out of court with my lawyers. And 6 months later, we got to court. We spent all day in court waiting to be heard. And then the police prosecutor or the police representative withdrew the application with no apology and no explanation whatsoever. So that was really infuriating. And
So do you think that was just a scare tactic?
look, I said to my lawyers, it felt like a game of chicken, you know, like who's going to blink? And I'm proud to say I did not blink, and I will not blink. So who knows? It was a very, I mean, it's not violence to identify males in female sport. Like, how do you use an apprehension of violence order against someone who is using political speech, common sense speech, to say, hang on a minute, there's a bloke in this woman's team and that ain't right, folks. You know, that's not violence. It might hurt his feelings, but it's certainly not violence. A second player took out an application, a private application that has been heard in a local court, but the decision won't be made until the 6th of December. So I can't speak to that one so much at the moment, but it is really upsetting as a woman, as a mother, as a wife, as a sister, as a daughter, and as a former athlete myself, not an elite athlete, but I did do representative sport, to think that women are being so intimidated and harassed into silence. And the amount of women that contact me and say, I've had this experience in my sport, but there's no way I'm going to talk about it because of what's happening to you. And I'm like, well, they win. That's the point. They're trying to threaten you and intimidate you through me. And so, this is the hill I will die on. I will not concede that a man is a woman. I will not, concede women's sex-based rights in this space. I just can't do it. I won't do it.
Yeah, and female sports at any level are so important. We were talking to a lady, weren't we, Sue? And she did sports to help her get through a really depressing time. Sports helped her. And if there were men on her team, where does that leave us?
Correct.
How can
I was speaking... Yeah, well, that's right. I was speaking to a lady who's had to play against some males in soccer. And, all the physio research, all the medical research shows us that women's knees and men's knees are very different. Men's knees can do the sideways motion a lot more effectively than a woman. Women's knee injuries, which, I'm sitting here, I'm on crutches at the moment, waiting for surgery, my 10th surgery on my knees because of sport. We're a lot more vulnerable. And she had her the power behind her kick measured, and it was about 29 kilos or something, I think she said, whereas a male's average is 39 kilos. That's 10 kilos more. So she's on a field and is tackled by a guy. She already has more vulnerable knees because they don't move that way, and then 10 more kilos of force behind it. Like, that is insane.
It's common sense, and we've known this forever, that this is the difference.
But women are more susceptible to concussion as well.
Correct.
Than what men are. And so with that force behind that, how many women are they going to physically hurt, and to what extent? But they just don't seem to care. It's just, we're collateral damage.
Well, there was a video of that chap giving the tackle, and he sent her flying.
Yes. That's correct. And if you look at the policies, they're just insane. Football New South Wales have just put out this policy, but many of the sports have the same policy. I'm just picking on them because I want to at the moment, but they are the most recent to do this, and they're like, at elite level, transgender women, so men, have to have their testosterone under 2.5 nanomils, which doesn't negate all the advantages of bigger hands, feet, bone density, everything else. But at community level, trans women are women. So I'm like, make up your minds. Either trans women are women all the time, or, why is this magical line drawn when they're elite? Oh, no, they're actually males now who have to lower their testosterone. Like, they look ridiculous by even putting out these policies, and no one in the media, questions it, asks, points out the obvious. And meanwhile, women at community level have to put up with blokes in their change rooms and their sports, increased danger to them on the field, and it's just simply not fair. And what is the point of having male and female divisions if males can play in the female division?
Women
What's the actual point?
Women are expected to be the just play second fiddle to men. It really pisses me off. because we're told, oh, it's just about the taking part in sport. It's not about the winning anyway. Just no one ever says that about men's sports.
But they can. These transgender identified males can play in sport. Nobody's saying they can't.
Exactly.
We're just saying play in the male team or the open or the mixed, or create a trans category, which funnily enough, World Aquatics did that. Nobody registered. Because these men want to dominate women. That's the whole point.
Yeah.
But
And they want to be in the women's changing rooms.
And if you notice, the ones that win in women's sports, you know, like the more elite level, they can go back and see where they rated as a male, and they're all mediocre men that can't make it.
Exactly.
So into the women's sports, and all of a sudden they're number one.
Exactly. And we're told we've got to be inclusive. Well, no, why don't the men have to be inclusive of these other males? It is, I mean, in some ways it's good for us because it's really highlighting the lunacy. It's showing just how insidious and ridiculous the whole lot of it is. But you know, I feel like there's obviously still a long way to go before we wake up the rest of Australia. And unfortunately, while ever the Australian Institute of Sport has people like Kieran Perkins at the head, it's going to be a big battle. But having said that, you know, we have wonderful people like the Olympian Deborah Ackerson. 5 Commonwealth Games in a row. No, I think there's only one other athlete in the whole Commonwealth that's ever achieved that. She's had to compete against Gavin Hubbard from New Zealand.
It was the first time that my entire family was able to come from all around the world and actually see me compete. So it was a really amazing moment for me.
At those games, you were up against transgender lifter Laurel Hubbard. How did you feel about that?
My experience of that was that it was very confronting for me. It was also very distracting for me in the competition. It was a historical moment really because there was such a lot of talk in the previous year and a half or so about whether this would actually happen, would the rules allow it and that sort of thing. There was a lot of discussion in the lead up to the competition. You know, this was capping off my entire career. This was supposed to be, you know, for me a really special moment for me, my family, and the crowd that, you know, had come to watch me compete as well. So it was fairly confronting to line up on the stage and be sort of in that historical moment and be part of it, to know that, you know, I was competing against a transgender athlete. The one thing that I was asked from 6 months out from the Games to this moment is, how did I feel about it? And I sort of wanted to have that moment for me as an athlete, as a woman, being the first person in Australian weightlifting to compete at 5 Commonwealth Games. You know, that was a record in itself, and I think that's what I wanted to enjoy in that moment.
Did you feel there were physical differences between you two?
I did feel in that moment that there was significant, not so much that I was at a disadvantage, but that the transgender athlete was at a physical advantage. That's definitely how it felt at the time, yeah.
She is a very articulate, very strong, literally strong woman. She, you know, I think she trains with 20 tons. She lifts a week or something. It's crazy. She's just had her 4th baby, so she's she's an absolute legend of a woman. So she's having a bit of quiet time at the moment, and rightly so. But I can tell you, she'll come back out with all guns blazing soon, because you know, this woman has the authority, has the experience to talk to this issue, and what she has to say is common sense. It's what we all know, but it comes from that elite athlete perspective. So I'm so proud to know Deb and to know her story. And, you know, if your viewers are interested, there's plenty of YouTube clips.
And she spoke at the Brisbane.
Correct.
So for women to compete at the Olympic Games in weightlifting, it took 104 years for women to have a vote that passed, not unanimously, to be able to lift weights at the Sydney Olympics. So about four Olympic Games after that, are trans athletes competing in a women's category. It took 52 years for women to compete in weightlifting at the Commonwealth Games. And I was part of that first women's team at the Commonwealth Games to lift. That was a pretty historical moment for women weightlifters. Very historical. That meant a lot to me. And then at my 5th Commonwealth Games, I lined up against a trans weightlifter, a biological male, that was 50 kilos heavier than me, was about, I don't know, 20 centimetres taller than me at least, maybe 30. That felt incredibly unfair. I trained for 20 plus years to be the best weightlifter, this best female weightlifter in this country. I trained for 20 years. 12 times a week I was training to represent Australia at the Olympic Games and the Commonwealth Games. I cannot express the unjust feeling that I had, the injustice when I sat there trying to do my warm-up at the Commonwealth Games and trying to forget what was happening right in front of me. It was incredibly hard. Unfair. So for 20 years, I've been trying to promote strength sports for women and how great it is, half risk of osteoporosis in later life, what an amazing feeling it is to be a strong woman. So, thank you. So I probably wouldn't be speaking in this space except for I have experienced it. I was representing this country at Olympic and Commonwealth Games, and I line up against a biological male. It was horrendous. It was disappointing, and I've experienced it. So whenever I come across people that have an opinion on this topic, I just want to ask, do you know what it feels like, and have you experienced it? Because I have, and some of my teammates have as well. And to train as hard as you can and to see boys coming to the gym and getting really, really good really quickly, it's really hard, except that I can tell myself it's different because I'm not a biological male. I'm a female, my body is different, as you can see, number 4 on the way. So I just want to speak in this space because when I was wearing a Save Women's Sport singlet last week walking around, people were looking at me very confused. What's wrong with women's sport? Why do we have to save women's sport? I'm telling you, this is why we need to save it. I have 3 daughters, and one of them is at the national level in her sport, and I'm just really hoping that it doesn't happen to her, but that's why I want to speak. I'm not competing anymore. This is not about me. This is about the principle of what is going on here, and it's not fair. So I'm doing this for my 3 girls, and I want to do this for every female that wants to be an elite athlete and compete in the future.
And you were up there,
Yes.
here for it as well. Yeah.
My name's Kirralie Smith, and I want to stand before you today and say transgender is based on a lie. It is not truth at any level. No one can change their sex, and we're being gaslit into believing a lie. I've got so many stories I can tell, but I want to tell you today that I've been meeting with Queensland parents and will continue to meet with Queensland parents who can't come today because they are being threatened that they will lose their children and lose their jobs if they are seen here. That if they speak out and talk about the way that the schools are manipulating their children into believing that they can their gender and sex, which they can't do, that they will lose their children. They're being told that they will lose their jobs. They have to keep their identities quiet. So good on you for being here. You are standing in the gap for these parents, and we need to continue to do it so that we have an environment where we can speak truth, where we can speak plain facts, that a man is a man and a woman is a woman, and that's all, folks. I personally have been called by the police. My children are being doxxed, taken their photos, put online, threatened. My son's going to be excluded from football because of his stand on this issue for simply saying, what is a woman? And why do we have separate divisions, whether it's sport, toilets, or whatever, in the first place, for males and females? Because we're different. And that's okay. We should celebrate that, we should protect that, and we should defend that to the death.
I've seen her speak at IWD conference as well.
Correct.
She's
a good
incredible.
lady. Yeah.
Yeah, she's great. Okay, so can we talk about the vilification as well?
We can talk a little bit about it. So that's there were 2 complaints made to the Anti-Discrimination Commissioner in New South Wales, who then referred it on to NCAT, which is the New South Wales Civil and Administrative Tribunal, for misgendering these male players because I called them male. I can't even tell you what that does to my brain. It just, the mind boggles. And
we're
so
not living in reality. You know, we're just not. If our legal system isn't in reality, then where's the foundation for civilization?
I don't know what to say anymore.
There's no words.
It really upsets me. Again, like, I'm not going to back down, and I will defend this, all the way through to the High Court if I have to. this is not going to go away, and I'm not going to lose. Or I'm certainly not going to, you know, I will go down with a very big fight, because this is incredible that, you know, the Sex Discrimination Commissioner came out about Sal Grover's case and said that people can change their sex. And you go, like, there's not, they can't.
No.
You cannot. It's written on every single cell in your body. You cannot change the way your system is geared for the production of large or small gametes. It's in our DNA. It is absolutely insane. And so this is an ideological, political battle. And, you know, praise God, I am a Christian, but I'll just say praise God that people like Sal Grover, Louise Elliott, myself, Catherine Deves and others are just, you know, Moira, we will take this fight. We will not bow down. We will not go away quietly, because this is too important for all of us.
How does the government expect the public to trust in them when they deny reality like this and they punish people for speaking the truth? I mean, we've got the hate speech and vilification laws. It's been passed in Queensland. You know, there hasn't got a proclamation date yet, and it has to be tested, but we may not be able to talk about it on social media either.
And they're trying to bring in the misinformation, disinformation laws federally. It's very concerning. It's very Orwellian. It's, but again, you know, I do think, like, this is not to diminish, please don't hear me diminishing what's happening with Israelis and the Jewish people and what happened in the 1930s. But because people just went along with it, there was carnage. There was great devastation throughout the earth. And I think, you know, we're not facing gas chambers. We're not facing elimination physically in the same way the Jewish people were, but womanhood is being erased and our rights are being erased. And if people don't challenge these very bad laws, and if people remain silent, what is going to happen to our children is beyond our imagination. We're already seeing too many young adults coming out and saying that they have been so deeply and grossly harmed by this movement. And it really rips my heart out. And we just need to defend this and argue against this as far as we can, as long as we can. And if it means going to jail and paying fines, then so be it, because it's too important not to. You know, you said about the government's doing this, but also there are courts already in Australia. A Bankstown magistrate earlier this year, a male, exposed himself to a 14-year-old in a toilet block, and in the judge's written notes and in his decision, he wrote, when she exposed her penis. Now, I can't even imagine, you know, for women who have been sexually assaulted, for children who have been sexually assaulted, for that child to sit there and listen to a magistrate say when she exposed her penis.
And also women should be outraged that the crimes that these men are committing are counted in the statistics of the crimes that women.
Exactly.
Women. They are not women. These crimes were not committed by women, but they are reported in the media as crimes committed by women. The pronouns she and her are used to refer to these men. In court, they are also referred to as she and her. Female names are used for them. But these are lies. These are men, not women. Some of these men have had their crimes officially recorded as having been committed by a woman. Some have been sent to a women's prison to serve their sentences amongst female prisoners who are given no choice in this. They are not women, they are men. These are not our crimes.
And there are examples of males being housed in female prisons right here in Australia. But again, our media is so complicit, so captured. They won't report on it. And women's lives, the most vulnerable women in our society are in prisons, and they are now having to face being housed with males. It's beyond my comprehension.
This is affecting the most vulnerable people. I mean, I haven't had the same situation as you being dragged through court, but me and Jasmine Sussex got pulled up, and she's been pulled up before by the safety commissioner. For saying that men shouldn't breastfeed babies.
It's incredible. Don't be quiet. You know, like, and I know you're not, but more people, like, it staggers me that more people from the Australian Breastfeeding Association didn't stand up, and it is insane. And the E-Safety Commissioner, in my opinion, is out of control. She's out of bounds. You know, she's tried to threaten and shut down Reddix magazine for reports they've made on what's happened here in Australia. She's gone to other websites overseas and tried to shut them down and intimidate them into silence. You know, these are journalists who are reporting on facts on what's happening here in Australia, and the E-Safety Commissioner wants them to
it's a destruction of free speech. So if people think, you know, they should look at this and be alarmed and think, okay, what else will they stop us from talking about also?
Correct.
They're testing the waters to see how far they can take it. If we do not stand up and fight back, that's it. They'll have control over the population.
Exactly. And I think that's ultimately where it's leading. And like I said, there's this misinformation, disinformation bill that is in development right now.
Isn't that hilarious, calling it misinformation?
Correct.
It's 1984. Everything is upside down.
Yes, and they want the government to be the only source of truth to be able to determine and to be able to police the language on the internet, of the media, what goes on in courts and everywhere else. And Australians need to be very alarmed about this. They're trying to bring it in under the radar. They are, I think they had more than 2,000 submissions, but they're only going to make a few hundred of them public. Like that they're already censoring, you know, people's submissions. So it's very concerning.
Yeah. Even with the Lesbian Action Group, the Australian Human Rights Commission didn't publish all the submissions.
No, that's right. And I mean, what a farce that was.
Yeah.
You know, same-sex attracted women are not allowed to, you know, base their attraction on same sex. It is insane. And, you know, Carol Ann from the Lesbian Action Group has been phenomenal in this space, as have, you know, her group of women. And again, I stand with them 100% because they, as adults, have every right to determine their own boundaries as women, as same-sex attracted women. And for that commissioner to say, no, they can't do that is... Again, I've run out of words. I just don't have the words.
It's ironic how they paint us as far-right extremists when every single religious or Christian woman I've met in this fight has nothing against gay people whatsoever, and they only want them to have the best lives and the rights that everyone else has got. It's this movement that is completely homophobic, denying the existence of same-sex attraction, completely denying that exists. So he couldn't get any more homophobic, sterilising gay kids or kids that will grow up to be gay.
But even with this Australian human rights decision, because the trans lobby, they don't believe in same-sex attraction, it's same-gender attraction. So these men are going to come in, it's going to be hostility towards women, and who knows what that leads to. So it's state-sanctioned coercive rape, basically.
Yeah, look, it's again, where it's going is extremely alarming. One interesting thing I think will be some trans, so women who identify as males have tried to access some male-only clubs, and the guys haven't liked that. And unfortunately, we know that you know, too bad if women's spaces are invaded, but you touch the men's, we might see some positive action. So we'll see what happens there. But as you said, you know, they're trying to trans away the gay, and it is very homophobic, this movement. And but words are meaningless now. You know, they're just, words are meaningless. They say whatever they like. They accuse us of everything under the sun. They brand us as everything negative. But again, I hope that will start to work to our advantage.
They're very good at it, aren't they? Like, we're fighting for women's rights, we're anti-trans. You know, we're hateful and bigots when you look at what they are.
How many times have we turned up to one of their protests or speaking events to shout abuse or threaten them with violence? How many times have we ever done that?
Yeah, we don't. That's exactly right. They're foul in their language, they're intimidating, they're threatening, they're violent. You know, we have seen particularly women in Melbourne physically assaulted for their position, and you know, it barely raises a ripple anywhere. And it's very
the mainstream media is really just a mouthpiece for government now, and it has been for quite some time. And it's
There's
just
very few who will speak out. Let me say there are a handful, and it's been a really interesting journey for me as I've spoken to several journalists about my cases who have tried very hard to get the story on air or published in newspapers. The editors, on the whole, are saying no, because the lawyers are saying to the editors, no, we're not going there, it's too risky. And so instead of, you know, we all, I don't know, I grew up loving those movies of journalists who, you know, buck the system and get the truth no matter what. And well, I don't know where they are anymore, because, you know, unless you've got the Bernard Lanes, who actually leaves the Australian so that he can start his Substack and actually report accurately. Thankfully he does,
pretty
you know.
good. Sky's pretty good. You
on
know,
some things, on some things.
Oh, yeah, on some things. No, but I watch what they put out there in relation to the gender ideology, but I've never seen them exaggerate anything in relation to this space.
Well, we have
but I guess they won't report on all. They won't report on me. They won't report on other women. Yep, that's right.
Oh, I didn't realise that. Oh, okay.
Yeah, so they have their they have some, which is great. You know, like they've been very supportive of Moira and Sal and Catherine Deves, you know, to a degree, and Rachel Wong.
It doesn't make sense, because it just supports this even further by reporting on other women.
Yeah, look, I don't understand. I don't know why, but I know that myself and others have worked really hard to try and get Sky to report on these things. I think there was a mention after the police did withdraw that AVO. I think that there was a few mentions on Sky news programs, or, you know, people like Rowan Dean are really good. But yeah, basically they don't want to know.
With me, this is going back to April 2022, and Sky approached me to interview me. I didn't actually go ahead with it at that time, but so yeah, have they become scared?
Well, I don't know. Someone that I know who works at Sky says that the lawyers have sat them all down in recent months and said that you know, they're not to come out swinging, basically. And
okay, so that would explain why they've and I get with the others,
if they refer to it as part of a larger story, that's okay, but not to make it the story, sort of thing. So it's really frustrating, because unless, you know, especially like my dad's generation, my parents' generation is very much, but if it's not on the news, it didn't happen, or it's not true, or, you know, why didn't I see that on the news? And that's the really frustrating thing. And I think that, again, a lot of Aussies, you know, they're just at work, they'll listen to the news, and that's their way of connecting with the broader society. But yeah, the news just,
how is your family coping with what you're going through?
My husband and my 3 teenage children are phenomenal. They are so supportive, 100% on board. We, you know, they've come along to my court appearances. They know that this could be a really big cost on our family financially, emotionally. It's huge, but they are, they're 100% on board. One of my daughters wants to be an elite athlete. She trains really hard, so this is a very important issue to her. Yeah, and so yeah, they're just phenomenal. And my extended family and friends, I have a great network, which is really helps you to get through. I'd like to think that I'd do it even if I was the last man standing, but I don't have to find out, because I have so many great people.
Have you lost any friends or family over?
You know, I wouldn't say over this issue. I have over other issues. Like mandates, COVID mandates and things like that. But over this issue, and this is the really interesting thing, no matter where I go, and, you know, at first, you know, whether you're on a plane or at a function or something, you know, people would say, what do you do? I would always go, you know, and then tell them, thinking, oh, how are they going to react? Now I'm just out there with it, because I've never met a person who hasn't gone, what? That's crazy, you know? I really think that there's just a small cohort of activists that have captured, you know, a very small but powerful part of the public's attention. But yeah, anyone that I meet in the street, through our businesses, whatever it is, just out in public, everyone is on our side. And like I said, left or right, male or female, it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter what their well, actually, you know, ethnicity. I think that a lot of foreigners actually are stronger on this than we are. You know, because they value culture, they value family far more than a lot of white Australians.
In Sydney, for over 5,000 people of faith that marched, and never made the media.
No, exactly. But it's very important. It's very important to, well, you know, I said I did the halal choices thing and exposing halal certification schemes, but I have a lot of Muslim supporters because this is a very important issue to them. They understand that males and females are different. Very integral to their religious and faith beliefs. So they don't want to see this erasure of women happening in our society.
And a lot of Muslim women are actually excluding from life because they can't go to their local swimming pool anymore or their gym because there's the local transvestite that won't get out of their space.
And they're very upset about their children being exposed to drag queens in schools and libraries, and the book content that they're being presented and things like that. So this, like I said, it's an issue that's touching right across.
Well, I can really relate to that because I have an 18-month-old and another baby on the way, and there's no way that I would send them to school. When we were protesting the other day with me and Sue and some others, we came across a teacher who bit our heads off because she said we shouldn't be imposing this on children. We're literally standing there with signs that said adult, human, female.
Wow.
It's not hate to speak the truth. And I thought, if that's the kind of teacher that is now teaching, then there's no way I'm going to send my kids to school.
She was very aggressive. You would call her a trans extremist because her behaviour was so extreme.
Yeah, wow. Well, I homeschooled all of my children. They're 15, 18 and 20, and I can't recommend it highly enough, you know, and this was way before any of these things were even an issue. But it's a marvelous experience. You know and love your children better than anybody else possibly can. And that's not to say there aren't good teachers or schools out there, but in this day and age, even Christian schools, even private schools, you know, are bowing their knee on this altar because they're so afraid of losing funding or falling foul of the anti-discrimination law. So I really do encourage you as a parent to homeschool your kids. There's so many networks, so many great resources. And it really, you will see your children thrive. My 3 children are community orientated. They all volunteer at things. They all work. You know, they're very confident, and they know their identity, because at the end of the day, this is all about identity, whether it's gender identity or something else. It's about identity. And so you know your children, you can fan their gifts into flame, you can support them in their weaknesses. So I am a huge proponent of homeschooling, and one day when this battle is done, I'm just going to focus on encouraging other mums to homeschool, because that's my real passion.
So you were saying that you think that religious schools will bow to this?
They are. I've had to write letters to several faith school principals, because one allowed Mazandod College in Victoria, that was public, allowed a male who identifies as female, put out a letter to the school community saying that he is now she. And I'm like, how absurd that, you know, even on the biology level, so they go to class and learn about large and small gametes, and then they have to call he, she. Like, that's just ridiculous for a start. But it's a faith-based school. Several Catholic schools, I know of other just Christian schools, where they've, you know, all varying degrees of how far they've gone in terms of accommodating trans students or trans-identified students. But, some have gone the whole way and said, oh, no, it's just love and tolerance. And I also have a Bachelor of Theology, so I do know what I'm talking about here, is that Jesus declared himself the way, the truth, and the life. And this is the most basic truth. You know, if you want to speak truth, the truth is there's male, there's female, that's it. And science backs that up. That's not a faith position, that's a scientific position. So
the federal government passed the bill, didn't they, in August, religious discrimination?
Federally, not yet.
I was wondering what happened about that. That was Scott Morrison, wasn't it?
Yeah, no, it's still it hasn't been, it's still being, you know, mushed around basically, but no, it hasn't.
I thought I read last week that it was passed in August.
Oh, okay. I'm not sure about that at all.
So isn't that the bill where religious schools are compelled to accept this ideology? I
Well,
might
maybe
have.
that's why they have got it in. Why they've got it in
Well,
there.
they're already afraid of the Anti-Discrimination Act. I know that, but I don't think the religious freedom stuff has been fully passed yet.
Okay,
So,
okay. You'd know more than me.
I could be wrong. I would think that I would know because it's been, you know, such a contentious issue. But I'm not
Yeah,
aware.
so Mark Dreyfus is back as the Attorney General. He was the Attorney General in 2013 with the Sex Discrimination Act when that was changed. And now he's back in 2023 with his finger in the pie again.
Yeah, look, it's really concerning. Their agenda, you know, is so destructive. And again, I mean, like, I wouldn't be surprised. Things slip under the radar all the time because that's by design. And we've had such big fights on this year with things like The Voice, with the you know, in New South Wales here, we're really focused on what Alex Greenwich is trying to do with, and the Minns Labor government in bringing in conversion therapy laws. You know, the only people converting or trying to convert anyone is the Greens and their supporters who want to convert kids from one sex to another, which you can't do. But yeah, there's a lot going on, and then with the misinformation, disinformation bill as well. So yeah, there's so much going on, and we really have to be on top of it.
Yeah. Do you have hope for this turning around?
Eventually, I don't know when. Like I said, like, I'm so convinced, and I know that so many people are, that this isn't a grey area. There is only male and female. All the evidence-based science, evidence-based reality, truth, facts, everything points to this. So at some point, yes, we will win. I don't know how much blood will be spilled or how many sacrifices will be made before that happens. But I know that I will go down in history as someone who refused to back down. I will not concede anything.
Well, we're seeing things over in Europe, the UK, and the US, and they're moving in a positive direction in getting rid of this ideology. So surely Australia and New Zealand can't sit there. And
well, it's becoming more obvious, isn't it? And this is, you know, Senator Alex Antic from South Australia has put his bill up for forbidding doctors to medicalise children under the age of 18. And in it, he highlights the fact that the UK, through the Cass report, Norway, Sweden, Finland, and states in the USA have all stopped using puberty blockers on children because it's so harmful. We have a medical insurer here in Australia that's no longer going to insure doctors who do this. So there is some really good signs of hope. But it's just we just have to keep pushing and pushing and pushing, standing firm, making sure that we don't give any ground in this, because eventually I do believe we will win.
Imagine if we had media that would actually report on what's going on overseas. We'd win this a lot quicker if they would start reporting on these issues. But the fact that they remain silent doesn't help us progress this. But
no, but hopefully, look, it might only take one. You know, if we can get an editor in one of the newspapers just to be courageous and to break a story on these things. And look, that 7 Spotlight program, I think, was phenomenal. So surprising. I don't know about you. I was so surprised at how that came across. I was contacted by a producer beforehand and was so suspicious about how it would go, but I'm so thankful. And I won't be surprised if we see more programs like that in the future. And I think the other thing that will turn it around is legal cases where detransitioners begin suing the doctors who led them down these pathways. So
there's already at least a couple, aren't there, in Australia?
Yeah, but I think we will see a wave of those legal cases, and then that hopefully will turn things around as well.
Yeah, like you just said, the bloodshed and the sacrifice, that's not even a euphemistic term, because that's what they're doing. When you actually see, people should go and look at the images of what is actually happening, like the operations that they're doing to these young, the girls mainly, is just absolutely heartbreaking. That's someone's daughter.
Yes.
You know,
parents
are having to go. Some parents are encouraging this crap, and they're even paying for it, but other parents, they must just be going absolutely out of their minds.
Yeah, and that's where The detransitioners who are telling their stories are so brave and so courageous. They've been alienated, you know, twice over, most of them, from their original, you know, friends or family. Then they've been accepted by the LGBT community and then rejected all over again. But, you know, people like Chloe Cole in America, just phenomenal. And, you know, to listen to her story and to, you know, she's had the double mastectomy, but her nipples still weep, still have infections. We know Scott Nugent, who you know, had surgery, you know, had flesh removed from her arm, I'll say, to try and reconstruct a penis. And the infections, the health issues are just, they're so traumatic to watch and view. I can't imagine what it's like for those people to have to live with them. But their stories are vital, because parents and teenagers need to hear, you know, your problems won't be solved by cutting off perfectly healthy body parts. You're actually going to make yourself a lifelong medical patient with very serious implications.
But that's what they want, isn't it? The lifelong drugs and surgeries and revisions for these people. It's a complete moneymaker.
An industry, an absolute industry.
Yeah. It's so sinister.
Yeah, they just don't care, do they, what they're doing to these kids? And
No, they don't care.
But it is going to be their legacy, these politicians. So, you know.
Definitely. And that's what we're saying. You know, it's great when people like Moira, Pauline Hanson and others put up these motions or bills, because then we get to write down the names of those who are responsible and hold them to account at a later date. So,
and
you know,
they can't turn around and say, didn't know about it. They do.
Exactly. Exactly. And the speeches, particularly in the Victorian Parliament last week, were absolutely brilliant. So they should be played far and wide. And I'm thankful that they're on the Hansard record for posterity. So
that's right. Yeah.
Well, Kirralie, thank you for everything you do and are doing, and we appreciate you so much. Thank you for coming to talk to us.
Well, thanks for having me, Leah and Sue. It was lovely.
Thank you. We'll leave it there. All right. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.